Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Robert Ellis, and I'm a 37-year-old auto mechanic living just outside a dusty little town in Missouri called Brookvale. A place where rusted pickup trucks line dirt roads, and everyone knows your name, usually so they can whisper it when you're not around. I work sunup to sundown at Bart's garage, patching up engines and brakes for people who still think a tip is just, God bless you. But none of that matters when I come home to my daughter, Ellie. She's 11. My whole world. Her mother, Leah, died from ovarian cancer when Ellie was only 6. And since then, it's just been the two of us, surviving. I've got grease under my nails, calluses on my palms, and a wallet that's one bounce check away from useless, but Ellie's smile makes every late night worth it. Ellie doesn't care about dirt roads or old trucks. She cares about dancing. She gets it from her mom. Leah wasn't a professional ballerina, but she danced like the world was hers. Ellie watched old videos of her and started mimicking her moves. Every evening after homework, she'd slip on Leah's old leotard, torn and faded, and twirl in front of our living room mirror with such grace it brought tears to my eyes. The ballet shoes she wore. They were Leah's too. I'd stitched them up so many times they looked like patchwork quilts. But no matter how ragged they were, Ellie danced like she was on Broadway. One night, while I was patching a radiator leak in the kitchen sink, Ellie came bounding in, waving a crumpled flyer. Dad! There's a regional talent show next month. Winner gets a scholarship to the Metro Arts Academy. I took the flyer, wiping grease from my fingers before squinting at it. Metro Arts was no joke, it was the kind of place kids with money went to become stars. Ellie's face lit up with hope, and my chest tightened. It was a long shot. But I couldn't say no. All right, I smiled. We'll get you there. From that moment, it became our mission. She practiced every night, dancing until her toes bled. I stayed up late sewing her outfit, Leah's old pink leotard and tutu, now patched up with whatever scrap fabric I could afford. I even carved out a wooden bar from a broken curtain rod so she could practice properly. I was doing everything I could to give Ellie a shot. And then, just when things were starting to feel possible, I got a call that changed everything. It was from my sister, Denise. She lives a town over and has always looked down on me, her suburban house with solar panels, her clean manicured lawn, and her husband who sells insurance like it's a religion. We haven't talked much since Leah died. But that day, she sounded warm. Robert. Long time, huh? Listen, Mom and Dad want you and Ellie to come over for dinner this weekend. It's been too long, and, well, we've got news. Good news. My parents and we've had our differences. They never approved of me marrying Leah, a free spirit. They thought ballet was a waste of time, not something our family should encourage. But the idea of them finally reaching out, especially for Ellie's sake, gave me hope. Sure, I said. We'll be there. Ellie was over the moon when I told her. She even asked to wear the green dress Leah gave her for her last birthday. The sleeves were tight, and the hem had risen above her knees, but I didn't have the heart to say no. We took a long, dusty bus ride to my parents' place. The moment we walked in, I knew something was off. The house was decked out, streamers, fine china, fancy catering trays. Even Denise's husband, Todd, was there wearing a ridiculous blazer. Laughter echoed from the dining room, where a small crowd of neighbors sipped wine and ate roasted duck like it was Thanksgiving. I felt out of place. Ellie tugged my sleeve and whispered, Dad, why's everyone dressed up? I shrugged, trying to play it cool. Must be something special. And it was. After dessert, my father stood up, holding a wine glass like some country club bigshot. We have an announcement, he boomed. My wife and I just won $150,000 in the state lottery. Applause filled the room. Glasses clinked. Denise cheered. My stomach churned. I looked at Ellie, who clapped politely. She didn't understand yet what that kind of money could do. But I did. As the party thinned out and the guests trickled away, I pulled my parents aside in the kitchen. Mom, Dad. Ellie's been working toward this talent show. If she wins, she can get into Metro Arts. But we don't have the money for travel, costumes, registration. I was hoping. I trailed off. They looked at me like I was asking for a kidney. You're asking us to waste our winnings on a children's recital, my mother scoffed. My dad added, Robert, this is real life. Ballet won't pay her bills. Let her dance at home. But, just a little, I pleaded. Just enough to get her to the audition. I'll pay you back. No, my mom said coldly. That money's for our retirement. And don't embarrass yourself begging. That hit me like a truck. I didn't respond. I just turned, found Ellie asleep on the couch, and carried her to the bus stop. As the wheels turned and the town lights faded, I stared out the window, rage swirling in my chest like a storm. Not because they said no, but because they couldn't even see Ellie. They couldn't see her light. And in that moment, I made a vow. If they couldn't help my daughter shine, I'd make sure they lived long enough to see just how brightly she would burn, without their help. Next stop, despair. The bus ride home was quiet. Ellie leaned her head against my shoulder, her little hands clutching the frayed edges of her green dress. She didn't say a word, not about the party, not about the lottery, not even about the duck she barely touched. And that silence? It cut deeper than anything my parents said. Back home, the house was colder than usual. Maybe it was just me. The same yellow bulb flickered in the kitchen, the linoleum peeling near the fridge, the scent of old motor oil clinging to my clothes like regret. Ellie climbed into bed without brushing her teeth. I didn't press her. I just sat at the kitchen table staring at my checkbook. $4.27. That was what stood between me and nothing. My next paycheck wasn't due for 10 days, and rent was coming. But none of that mattered compared to what was clawing at me inside. I had begged. Not for me, for Ellie. And they treated her dream like trash. I pulled out the competition flyer from my back pocket and unfolded it. The deadline for the application was 10 days away. The registration fee alone was $75, not counting travel or the mandatory audition outfit. I set it down on the table and buried my face in my hands. My phone buzzed. I picked it up, expecting a reminder from the electric company. But it was a text from my sister Denise. Hey. Sorry about earlier. They're just being practical. Love ya. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering. Then I threw the phone face down and laughed. Love ya? That woman hadn't asked about Ellie since Leah died. Suddenly I was a topic worth a courtesy text. The hypocrisy made me sick. The next morning, Ellie was already up when I woke. She was practicing turns barefoot on the creaky wood floor, wearing Leah's old ballet top, again. She had taken a needle and thread to fix a tear herself. It wasn't pretty, but it held together. Morning, Dad, she said, slightly out of breath, sweat already dotting her brow. You okay? I asked. She nodded. Do you think Mom would be proud of me? I choked on my coffee. Of course she would. Every single day, I managed. Ellie smiled, but it faded fast. Why did Grandma say ballet is a waste? I paused. Because she's small. Because she's bitter. Because she never chased a dream, so she can't understand what it means to fight for one. But I couldn't say that. She doesn't get it, I said simply. But that doesn't matter. You're going to dance anyway. That day I worked a double shift at Bart's, skipping lunch. Grease burned into my skin as I slid under a busted Dodge and hammered at a rusted pipe. My hands were bleeding by the end of the day, but I stayed an extra hour to fix a local farmer's pickup, off the books. He paid me $40 in cash. That night, I came home with a bag of beans, a pack of ramen, and a single chocolate bar for Ellie. She smiled when she saw the candy, broke it in half, and handed me a piece. She still shared with me, even when she had so little. That night I broke down. Not in front of her, of course. I waited until she was asleep. I sat in the garage, next to an old rusted-out Honda I'd been too tired to finish fixing, and I cried like a man who'd finally realized life doesn't owe you a damn thing. I didn't care about the scholarship or the money anymore. I cared about Ellie having one day, just one, where she could be seen for who she was. Not the girl with holes in her shoes. Not the poor kid in a thrifted leotard. Just Ellie. The girl who danced like she was born from sunlight and dreams. But the world doesn't clap for girls like that. And yet, she danced anyway. The next week, things got worse. The shop cut hours. I lost my Saturday shift. The electric bill came in, overdue. I called the number on the envelope, waited on hold for 32 minutes, only to be told they'd be shutting it off by next Monday. At that point, I did something I never thought I'd do. I sold Leah's old engagement ring. Pawned it for $145. It hurt like hell. But Ellie's audition fee was $75, and bus fare would be $60. That left me with $10 and a pocketful of shame. But I mailed that application the same afternoon. And when I got home, Ellie was in the living room choreographing her routine. She'd scribbled "Mom's Dance" at the top of a notebook, each page filled with awkward stick figures doing pirouettes and arabesques. "This part's about her smile," she said, pointing to one of the drawings. "And this part's when she used to tuck me in." She'd made an entire dance, about her mom. I couldn't speak. I just knelt beside her and hugged her tight. Maybe this was all foolish. Maybe the judges would laugh her off the stage. But I didn't care anymore. Even if the world didn't clap, I would. Because her dream wasn't silly. It was sacred. 3 days after I mailed in Ellie's application, I got a call I never expected. It was from Ms. Thompson, Leah's old dance coach. I hadn't heard her voice in nearly 6 years, not since Leah's funeral. She'd been like a second mother to Leah and had taught dance classes at the Brookvale Community Center for over 2 decades. A sweet, gray-haired firecracker with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. "Robert," she said. "I hope this isn't a bad time." My stomach tightened. "No, not at all. Everything okay?" She sighed. "I just found out about Ellie's audition for the Metro competition. I saw her name on the registration list." I blinked. "Wait, how?" "I volunteer with the foundation that oversees the event," she said. When I saw the name, Eleanor Harper Ellis, I just knew. I didn't know what to say. I braced myself for some comment about how unprepared Ellie was, how ridiculous this all seemed. But instead, Ms. Thompson said something that stopped me cold. "She's dancing to Leah's music, isn't she?" I froze. "Yes." "How did you?" "I knew it. Leah always said that if she ever had a daughter, she'd pass down that old Chopin piece. You remember the one she danced to in her final showcase?" "Of course I do," I whispered. "She used to hum it when she did the dishes." "I never told anyone this," Ms. Thompson continued, "but Leah recorded a private dance rehearsal during her last week of classes. It was just her in the studio, raw and emotional. She gave me a copy and asked me to give it to her daughter one day, when the time was right." My hands trembled. "You still have it?" "I do," she said gently. Would you and Ellie like to come by?" That night, after work, I told Ellie we were going to visit someone special. She tilted her head. "Do I have to wear something nice?" I smiled. "Just bring your heart." When we got to Miss Thompson's small house, the moment Ellie walked in, the old woman gasped. "She's got Leah's eyes," she murmured, hand over her chest. "And her feet." Ellie beamed. We sat down in the cozy living room, and Miss Thompson pulled out a flash drive from a drawer. "This is Leah's last rehearsal. Just, be ready. It's not polished. But it's real." I plugged it into her old laptop, and we sat in silence as the screen lit up with footage I hadn't seen in over a decade. There she was, Leah, standing barefoot in a dusty studio, hair in a loose bun, wearing that same pink leotard Ellie now practiced in. The music began, soft and sorrowful, and Leah began to move. I forgot how beautiful she was when she danced. Not because her technique was perfect, but because she danced with her heart wide open. Every movement spoke of love, pain, hope, and something I now recognized as quiet fear, the fear of time, of endings, of leaving something behind. Ellie stared at the screen, eyes wide and unblinking. When it ended, she didn't speak. She just stood up and began mimicking the moves in the middle of the living room. Ms. Thompson and I sat frozen as Ellie, without being taught, without any cue, matched the timing, the flow, the emotion. She didn't get every step right. But the essence? The soul of the dance? She understood it. I turned to Ms. Thompson, and her eyes were glistening. "She's not just Leah's daughter," she whispered. "She's her echo." That night, we drove home in silence, Ellie cradling the flash drive in her lap like it was made of glass. "Dad," she said quietly. "Can I change my audition routine? To your mom's dance?" She nodded. "I want to dance for her. With her." I gripped the steering wheel tighter to hide the shaking in my hands. "Then we'll do it," I said. "Whatever it takes." That weekend, I called in a favor from a buddy who worked at a local appliance repair shop. I offered to fix his truck for free if he'd let Ellie use their warehouse's smooth floors after hours to practice. He agreed, reluctantly. But it worked. Every night, I brought Ellie there after my shift. She'd dance until midnight, using the video of Leah as her guide. I sat on the floor, exhausted, my hands raw and blackened from brake fluid and oil, but I didn't miss a single step. One night, she collapsed on the floor, panting, crying into her arms. "Ellie." I rushed over, afraid she was hurt. But when she looked up, she was smiling through the tears. I just felt her, "Dad." "Mom." She was with me. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I cried right there on the cold cement floor, holding my daughter and the legacy of the woman I loved. That was the moment I stopped hoping Ellie would just survive the audition. I wanted her to win it. Not for validation. But so the world could see what I saw, a girl who carried her mother's spirit in her bones, and her own courage in every step. But I also knew we needed more than courage. We needed a plan. That night, after Ellie fell asleep, her small body curled on the mattress, arms still mimicking a pirouette in her dreams, I stayed up with pen and paper. Not to budget. Not to pray. To plan. This wasn't just about the audition anymore. It was about what came after. The competition would be packed with kids from elite studios, choreographers, private tutors, parents with six-figure incomes, and personal tailors. And then there was Ellie. Home-taught. Wearing her mother's patched leotard. Practicing in warehouses. They might let her walk onto that stage. But they wouldn't take her seriously, not unless I made sure they had no choice. So I started a plan. Not for vengeance in the traditional sense. This wasn't a scheme to hurt anyone. This was to force the world to watch Ellie burn so brightly they'd have no choice but to look. First, I found out who was sponsoring the event, a regional dance nonprofit with ties to the city's Arts Council. Their social media was barely active, but they had an upcoming pre-audition showcase night open to the public. Bingo! I spent the next day creating a public Facebook page, Ellie's Echo, one girl's dance for her mother. I uploaded a still shot from Leah's old dance video, Leah mid-leap, suspended like a spirit, and placed a current photo of Ellie beside it. Same pose. Same eyes. Same soul. Then I wrote the story. Not to beg. But to tell the truth. My daughter Ellie is 11. Her mother was a dancer. Cancer took her before she could see Ellie dance. Ellie taught herself ballet in a cramped living room using her mother's old outfit, patched with thread and love. This week, she'll perform at a prestigious regional competition wearing those same shoes. No studio. No instructor. Just her and a memory. I don't want pity. I want you to watch her. And see what I see. I shared the page on every small-town Facebook group within 100 miles, church pages, garage sales, community boards. I called in favors from former customers, begged the town librarian to let Ellie practice in the reading room after hours, and asked a kid at the local community college to help us shoot a short video for the page. In it, Ellie danced barefoot in the field behind our house at sunset, the violin track from Leah's performance playing softly underneath. It wasn't perfect, but that was the point. She wasn't some polished ballerina. She was real. I uploaded the video. Went to bed. Woke up to 400 views. Then 2,000. Then 10,000. By the next night, local news reached out. That weekend, a woman named Angela from a small cable channel came to our house and asked to film a segment. She watched Ellie dance in our living room. Then she interviewed me, hands still black from the day's oil change, about Leah, Ellie, and what we were fighting for. I didn't sugarcoat it. I told them about my parents' rejection. About my daughter's dream. About the patched outfit and the engagement ring I sold. Angela didn't blink. Just kept filming. People need to hear this, she said. That night, the local segment aired. And everything exploded. Thousands more saw the story. People started sending small donations, $5 here, $10 there, through the PayPal link I'd added. I was hesitant at first. But then a woman messaged, "This is for Ellie's shoes." I lost my daughter, too. I wept. Then I accepted the money. By the time Ellie's audition date arrived, I had just enough for a cheap but clean travel outfit, a new dance bag, and her first pair of shoes not held together by dental floss. But she didn't wear them on stage. She chose the old ones, the patched ones. "For Mom," she said simply. And something in me knew, she was ready. But I wasn't done. Not yet. The night before the competition, I sent a personal invitation to my parents. A printed card. No anger. No begging. Just this. Your granddaughter will be performing Leah's final routine tomorrow at the Civic Auditorium, 4 p.m. She's worked for months. I thought you might want to see what you almost missed. Robert. I didn't include a return address. I didn't care if they came. I just wanted them to know, the little girl they dismissed. She was about to step onto a stage that had nothing to do with money, and everything to do with courage. And this time, the world would see it too. The Civic Auditorium in Brookvale wasn't exactly Lincoln Center, but that afternoon, it felt like the most important stage in the world. Rows of foldable chairs were arranged across the wooden floor. A string of spotlights hung awkwardly overhead, buzzing faintly as the room filled with a mix of hopeful parents, judges, and a small but growing number of strangers, some with camera phones ready, others with tears already in their eyes. I stood backstage, holding Ellie's hand. She wore Leah's faded pink leotard, patched, stitched, loved, and her worn ballet shoes that looked like they could fall apart any second. I offered her the brand new pair we bought with donations. She shook her head. "I want to feel Mom in every step," she whispered. I nodded. "Then dance for her. Dance like the world's not watching." Ellie smiled, her eyes calm, focused. "Number 17, someone called. Ellie Ellis. My heart felt like it had stopped. Ellie stepped forward onto the stage. And that's when I saw them. In the second row, 2 seats from the aisle, my parents. I couldn't believe it. My father looked uncomfortable in his dusty old church suit. My mother wore a wrinkled coat I hadn't seen since childhood. Both sat stiff, eyes locked on the stage. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt pressure. They were here. Not to support her. To evaluate her. Just like always. The lights dimmed. The soft violin began to play. And Ellie started to move. Every spin, every pointed toe, every reach of her arm was a mirror of Leah. But more than that, it was Ellie. Her own fire. Her own strength. She wasn't just dancing to remember her mom. She was dancing to show the world what it means to carry someone's legacy, and add your own chapter to it. I forgot to breathe. The auditorium went dead silent. You could hear the squeak of her worn soles, the creak of the floorboards. And somehow, all of that made it more beautiful. It was raw. Honest. When the final note echoed through the air and Ellie dropped into her closing pose, arms outstretched, head lifted toward the ceiling, I saw her lips move. "Thank you, Mom." The silence broke. Not with polite applause. But with thunder. The room erupted. People stood. Cameras flashed. A few in the crowd wept openly. I scanned the crowd. Even my mother had a hand over her mouth, trembling. And my father? His eyes glistened. But I wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. Backstage, Ellie ran into my arms, breathless. "Did they clap?" she asked. I laughed through tears. "They did more than clap, sweetheart. They felt it." One of the event organizers approached us. A tall woman with a clipboard and eyes red from crying. "Mr. Ellis," she said. "I need to tell you something." My stomach dropped. "Is everything okay?" I asked. She nodded, then glanced at Ellie. Her performance touched everyone. "We've never seen anything like it." I smiled. "Thank you." She hesitated. "There's one more thing." I raised an eyebrow. She took a breath. The Metro Arts Academy was live streaming this showcase today. They contacted us just before Ellie performed. They're interested in offering her a full scholarship. I blinked. "A full what?" "Scholarship," she repeated. "Room, board, professional instruction. Everything." They saw the video of her and Leah circulating online. Then they saw her dance. And they want her. Badly. I sat down. Literally collapsed into a folding chair. Ellie stared at me, eyes wide. "Dad? Is this real?" I nodded, fighting back a sob. "You did it, baby. You really did it." The woman handed me a letter, on Metro Arts letterhead. I held it with shaking hands. I had dreamed of this moment. Sacrificed for it. Sold my wedding ring for it. And here it was. Real. Ellie hugged me so tight my ribs ached. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw my parents approaching. My mother's eyes were wet. My father walked with his hands clasped behind his back like he didn't know what to do. "Robert," my mother began softly. We had no idea." I stood up, Ellie still clinging to my side. "No," I said, voice flat. "You did. You just didn't care." My father flinched like I'd slapped him. "She was incredible," my mother whispered. "Your daughter, she's a star." I looked at them both. She always was. They stood there, expecting, what? Gratitude? Reconciliation? But I wasn't there to heal their guilt. I nodded once, turned back to Ellie, and walked away. They had seen her shine. That was all I needed. For 48 hours, we lived in a dream. Ellie twirled through our living room like she was floating. The acceptance letter from Metro Arts sat framed above the kitchen table. I even took a day off work, a miracle in itself, to take her out for pancakes and let her pick a new backpack. It was the first time I'd ever seen her without a hint of worry behind her smile. And then the phone rang. It was Angela, the local reporter who first covered our story. Her voice was tense. "Robert, have you checked the comments on the Metro Arts announcement?" I frowned. "No, why?" "You need to look. Now." I hung up and opened their social media post, a glowing picture of Ellie on stage, captioned, "Meet Eleanor Ellis, our newest full scholarship recipient." A true symbol of perseverance and passion. But the comments section. My stomach twisted. This isn't charity hour. So now we're rewarding kids for having a tragic backstory. No professional training, no technique. This is a PR stunt. Nepotism much? She got in because her mom danced. Lame. I scrolled and scrolled, bile rising with every word. Someone had even shared a screenshot from an anonymous forum, accusing me of using Ellie's story for clout and donations. They said I exploited a dead wife and a grieving kid for internet sympathy. I felt sick. I rushed into the living room. Ellie was dancing barefoot, laughing to herself. She had no idea. But then my phone buzzed again. Another call, from Metro Arts this time. I answered. "Mr. Ellis," said a man with a clipped accent. "We're calling to inform you that due to recent controversy and backlash, we're placing Ellie's scholarship on temporary hold." "What?" I said, standing up. "This isn't a revocation." "Not yet. But the board is re-evaluating. Some members feel there may be preferential treatment concerns." "She earned that spot," I growled. "I understand," he said, sounding bored. "But we have reputational considerations. Please be patient while we conduct a full review." He hung up. Just like that. Everything we worked for, everything Ellie had bled for, was hanging by a thread because of a few bitter voices online. I paced the room, rage boiling. Wasn't this what I feared from the beginning? That no matter how brightly Ellie burned, someone would try to snuff it out. That someone with more money, more polish, more power would rewrite her story for their comfort. I stared at the framed acceptance letter on the wall. Then I took it down. Not out of defeat. Out of focus. Because I was done playing nice. The next morning, I dug through old boxes until I found it, Leah's scrapbook. Inside were programs, ribbons, handwritten letters, photos from every dance class she'd ever taken. And among them, a VHS tape. Labeled in Leah's handwriting, Metro Arts, Winter Showcase, 1995. My eyes widened. She had performed there, years ago. And then I remembered something else. MS. Thompson's words, Leah wasn't just a student. She was a legend. I ran to Ms. Thompson's house and showed her the tape. "Oh my God," she said, tears in her eyes. This was the night she brought the house down. We had it digitized that afternoon. Then I edited the footage side by side with Ellie's performance. Mother and daughter, 2 decades apart. Same music. Same heart. Then I narrated over the top. In 1995, a girl with a dream stood on this stage and changed everything. In 2023, her daughter did the same. Ellie Ellis didn't ask for pity. She asked for a chance. And she earned it. With every stitch. Every spin. Every ounce of courage. You can't silence legacy. And you won't erase her. I uploaded the video. And it exploded. 100K views in the first hour. Then 500K. Celebrities shared it. Former Metro Arts alumni posted tributes. One called Ellie's story a masterclass in grit and grace. Then came the breaking point. An anonymous whistleblower leaked internal emails from Metro's board, showing that two wealthy donors had threatened to pull funding if Ellie remained in the program. The internet went nuclear. The hashtags began trending. Hashtag Stand with Ellie. Hashtag Legacy Can't Be Bought. A week later, Metro Arts released a public apology, and reinstated Ellie's full scholarship with a statement that read, "True talent shines from within, regardless of background. We are proud to welcome Eleanor Ellis as a full-time student. And to honor her late mother's memory, we will be renaming our spring showcase the Leah Harper Memorial Performance." When I told Ellie, she cried so hard she couldn't speak. She just hugged me and whispered, "Mom would have been proud." The Leah Harper Memorial Performance was held on a clear spring afternoon in New York City, inside the Metropolitan Pavilion, a stage soaked in elegance and legacy. The program bore two names in bold print on the cover. Leah Harper. Eleanor Ellie Ellis. I stared at it for a long time before folding it carefully into my coat pocket. Backstage, Ellie sat silently on a bench, lacing up a pristine new pair of satin point shoes. She wore a soft white leotard with delicate silver trim, her hair tied back in a perfect bun. Gone were the patches. Gone were the stitched seams. But one thing hadn't changed. The fire in her eyes. "You nervous?" I asked, kneeling beside her. She shook her head. "Not nervous. Just ready." I smiled. "You're your mother's daughter." "No," she said, looking up. "I'm yours too." And just like that, I couldn't speak. When they called her name, Ellie walked onto the stage like she had done it 100 times. The lights caught her perfectly, casting her shadow across the gleaming floor like the echo of another dancer. Leah was still with her. The music began. Chopin. That same haunting violin, full of memory and hope. But this wasn't a repetition of Leah's dance. This was Ellie's. She had taken the original routine and reworked it with her teacher, retaining the heart of her mother's performance, but infusing it with something new. Something fierce. Alive. She leapt higher. Held longer. Stretched wider. It was as if she was saying, "I come from pain, but I don't live there anymore." The crowd was silent. Even the critics. Then she landed her final spin, arms outstretched, chest lifted, gaze fixed on the heavens, and the music stopped. A single beat of silence. Then an explosion of applause. People rose to their feet. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled furiously. And me? I stood with tears streaming down my face, whispering, "She did it, Leah. She really did it." After the performance, Ellie was mobbed. Other students asked for pictures. Teachers hugged her. The director of Metro Arts presented her with a silver medallion engraved with her and Leah's initials. And then, something I never expected happened. The same Metro board member who had once voted to freeze Ellie's scholarship approached me. "Mr. Ellis," he said, clearing his throat. "I owe you both an apology. We were wrong. I didn't offer my hand. Just looked him in the eyes. Ellie made sure you saw what we already knew. That's enough." He nodded and walked away. Justice had already been served. Not by revenge. But by truth. We returned home to Brookvale a week later. The town was different now. Neighbors smiled. Kids asked Ellie to sign their programs. Even Mrs. Carter, the woman who once pitted Ellie's upbringing, sent over a lemon pie with a note that simply said, "Brookvale's own rising star." And my parents? They sent a letter. No excuses. No pleas. Just, We watched the broadcast. We saw her. We're sorry we didn't believe in her, or in you. You proved us wrong. Love, Mom and Dad. I didn't write back. But I didn't tear it up either. I just folded it and tucked it in the same envelope as Ellie's first audition receipt. Sometimes justice doesn't look like punishment. Sometimes, it looks like watching people eat their silence. 6 months later, Ellie received another letter. This one from the International Youth Ballet Foundation. She had been selected, one of only 10 students in the world, for their summer program in France. A dream she hadn't even dared to dream. She held the letter with trembling fingers, looked at me, and said, "Dad, we did it again." I laughed through tears. "No, sweetheart. You did." Tonight, Ellie is rehearsing in the living room, just like always. There's no patchwork on her outfit anymore. No holes in her shoes. But she still dances with the same spirit. Her mom's. And mine. And every time she spins, I'm reminded of what it took to get here. The nights I cried alone in the garage. The meals we skipped. The judgment we endured. The stage she claimed. And the world she changed. For a little girl who once danced in silence, she's now the voice for thousands. She is living proof that you don't need wealth, polish, or prestige to rise. You just need courage. And someone who believes in you, loudly. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.